And welcome back, everyone, to the Pokemon Team Creation Series. This one comes from my own personal list of suggestions, Shoto Todoroki from My Hero. I had to be certain that I did not do a video for this guy yet. And I was right. What I did do, though, is when I did my Hero Pokemon crossover What If years ago, I did include aspects of Shoto's team on here, which some of them will definitely show up. I did change it up. I do know a little bit from what I originally made, though. So, Shoto's team is pretty obvious. It's half fire, half ice. Spoiler alert. But exactly what did I actually do? Well, to start with his starter, no shocker, is Galarian Darmanitan, because it is currently, to date, the only ice-fire type that actually exists. Admittedly, only in Zen mode, but it's the only ice-fire type that actually exists. So this, for a guy whose power is half hot, half cold, half ice, half fire, you have to have this Pokemon on the team. But now I then had to think, okay, well, Shoto's really not a physical attacker. Yes, his ice does physical damage, but you know what I mean. He's a range fighter. He's attacking with the ice, not with his own physical strength. So most of what I had to put on the team were not physical type Pokemon, not physical fighters. They're special attackers. I then went with his number 2 Pokemon, which would have been Magmortar. Now, why Magmortar? First of all the Mon in here are fully evolved because if we would probably be looking at his team as it is near the end of the series. But Magmortar I put on because I feel like it's the closest we could get to a Pokemon that kind of looks like Endeavor, even more so than something like Magmar. And I could feel like for Endeavor, in a Pokemon world sense, to want his son to surpass him, he would gift him a Darmanitan or a Magmortar. So beyond that, though, or a Magby to turn into a Magmortar. So beyond that, though, I then was looking at the special attacking Mon that could exist. I first decided to put Glaceon on the team. One, ice type, standard ice type. I wanted to try to go with dual types as best I could, but I think what I could argue is this is probably the Mon that his mother gifted him. His mother gifted him an Eevee, the idea of being whatever you want to be, and ultimately he evolved it in reconciliation of her, in memory of her, to become a, am I missing a Mon on this? I am, no, I'm not. Where is, did I, hold on, once, I am missing, okay, now I know what happened. I just forgot to, label it that. So, even though he loves his mom, there's obviously the issue she burned his face, still. Next on, for the remaining 3, though, I wanted the fact that he is half ice, half cold, dual, if you will. I wanted the remaining ice and fire types on the team to be dual types. So first up, I went with Alolan Ninetales. Now, I did initially kind of think, well, maybe this is the Mon that his mother gifted him. Alolan Vulpix that turned into Alolan Ninetales. But I like the idea that maybe, no, that this Pokemon maybe reminds him of his mother, or maybe even his sisters. But that, I believe he's got 2 sisters, right? I know he's got 1. Either way. But more to the point that it is just a Pokemon that is very powerful. It's dual typing. And Shoto, for all it's worth, is trying to be the best hero or trainer in this version that he can be. I then went with Houndoom for the next fire type on the team. A dual type fire type that A, gives him more coverage thanks to the dark typing, but B, also has fire that is said to just keep burning you when it hits. So I like that. Plus, it goes with it goes a bit with his edgy streak he had at the beginning of the series. So I like that as well. And last but not least, I went with Armarouge because Armarouge has also some pretty high special attack. Fire Psychic is a unique typing, and overall, it's the most humanoid looking. It's I don't really have a great reason beyond the fact that it had high special attack. But, I mean, that's what I envision his team generally looking like. Honestly, you could probably do any combination of ice and fire beyond Galarian Darmanitan. However, the one Mon that I do think is a must is the Galarian Darmanitan. That's a must when you're doing a Shoto team, because it's half fire, half ice. Now, that being said, however, how strong and weak is this team? Let's talk about strength first. This is a team that can actually cleave through a lot. It's got a perfect 6 out of 6 for grass types. It's actually got a nice solid 3 out of 3 on across most of the rest of the board. 3 out of 3 on the bug types for the 3 fire types. 3 out of 3 for the flying types for the 3 ice types. 3 out of 3 with the 3 ice types for dragon types. 3 out of 3 towards ground types. 3 out of 3 with bug types. only 2, or 3 out of 3, 3 out of 6. 3 out of 6. Sorry, 3 out of 6 are ground, flying, bug, and dragon fighting as well. Only 2 with the fighting, due to the fairy type for Ninetales and the psychic type for Armor Rouge. Then, when it comes to steel, depending on what state Darmanitan's in, it can be either a 3 due to the 3 fire types, or a 4 due to the 4 fire types when Galarian Darmanitan transforms to the Zen mode. Unfortunately, on the opposite side of the fence, it's not looking good for a couple types. All the ice types get wrecked by fire types, or by fighting types, except for the Alolan Ninetales. But unfortunately, Houndoom picks up the slack when it comes to weakness for fighting. So half the team's weak to fighting. Half the team is also weak to one second here. Half the team is also weak to ground, being all the fire types. And half the team is weak to water. And then Formon on the team are weak to water when, again, Darmanitan turns into Zen mode. Now, for fire, which would normally be Ice's weakness, a big weakness, and steel, which is, again, a big weakness, Zen mode makes a big difference here. Because without Zen mode, Darmanitan makes it 3 weaknesses to fire and 3 weaknesses to steel. With Zen mode, fire resists both steel and itself. So Darmanitan actually goes down to only, how many weaknesses was it? To water, fighting, and rock, actually. So actually, Ice Fire really is not a bad typing at all. It's just we just don't get on. In fact, Fire is one of those few typings that can actually help cover some weaknesses that Ice has normally. Because it loses its weakness to fire and steel. And now it gains a double weakness to rock. So that's not good. But otherwise, and a new weakness to water. But I think that actually balances out pretty well. So then that leads us only to the question of how strong is this team? And there's a couple yeses, and a few maybes, but a lot of no's. And this is the problem when you specialize really in only 2 types, even if they're dual typed. Because with Kanto, in any region where you start with a rock type leader, you are going to run into a problem because Darmanitan is weak to rock. But because it's a fully evolved mon, it's a stone evolution, and we can go by, like, say, the types of moves that Darumaka would have had, because it can learn things like Bite and has a huge physical attack to it, you can get through Brock, especially Gen 1 Brock, without really any difficulty. It might even be able to take one, like, Rock Throw or something to the face. So that's not a big issue. The other next issue, though, would be Misty, because Magby would be your next starter. Remember, we go from top left to bottom right in the order you get your mon here. Magby would not even be a Magmar at this time, so Magby's going down hard. Because of Zen mode, Starmie and Staryu could get you down to the point where the minute you get hit Zen mode, you're actually weak to them now. Ice is also resisted by water. But again, the fact that you have Bite means you can probably muscle through Staryu. And probably Starmie. And Starmie's actually in a worse position because it's a psychic water type. So you could get past Misty. After that, though, it's a clean sweep for a while. You get through Surge, no problem. Erica's a joke. Koga, a little difficult, but you'd be able to handle Koga. Houndoom can definitely put a Crink, and Armor Rouge, being psychic and resistant to each other, should be able to resist Sabrina. Honestly, it's not until you get to Blaine that you actually reach a problem. Because Blaine has 4 fire types usually. Usually, I believe, a Rapidash, a Magmar, I think either a Growlithe or an Arcanine, and I'm not remembering the other one off the top of my head, but usually has 4 of them. And because you have, none of your ice types are actually are strong against fire, obviously, and even Darmanitan just becomes neutral when it becomes fire, it's going to come down to your other fire types, and unfortunately, fire resists fire, so you literally can't fight fire with fire. So what do? Well, luckily, you still have Armor Rouge, which would have Psychic moves at this point. Houndoom, which should have Dark-type moves. And hopefully you're teaching Magmortar something beyond just fire. Like maybe a Sunny Day with Solar Beam combo or something like that. Even though that wouldn't work against the fire type. You still get my point. I think it'll be a tougher match, but you should still be able to get through there. Giovanni, in theory, could be a problem. But luckily, the only mon he has on the team that's really a is Rhyhorn. Just due to the fact that... I believe he's got 2 Rhyhorns. No, he's got a Kangaskhan, if I remember correctly. because luckily, even though ground is strong against fire, which would be a problem for those 3-mon, the ice can just laser ground, luckily. Even the Doug trio, which would be faster than anything on this team, it shouldn't really have a move that will knock out any of your ice types, KOing them, except for maybe Ninetales, which is a bit of a glass cannon. But if Darmanitan's not in Zen mode, then you're actually not into that bad a way. Then you get to Elite Four, and this is one of the few and only times where it's not Lance that's the problem. Or Lance, honestly, Lance is actually a chump in this version because his Dragonaires and Dragonite are just going to get cleaved by the ice types and the fairy type with Ninetales. No. Lorelei is a problem because she is an ice type trainer, which you would think would be no problem because you got 3 fire types, 4 when you go into Zen mode. The problem is she has Lapras, Jinx will go down fine, but Cloyster, Dewgong, and Slowbro. She's more a water specialist than an ice specialist. And that means that at best she's neutral to your attacks except on Jinx. And that also means that water moves are going to be coming out, which are going to just waste your fire types. And ice is not strong against water. So you're going to have a hell of a time going up against Lorelei. And then you got to go against Bruno, who quite frankly is strong against your entire team for a change. Because he has multiple Onyxes, which are going to be strong against the entirety of this team. Like the entirety. Like this team has a times 6 weakness, as I said, to rock. And then the Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, and Machamp, they're just going to beat down the ice types as well, and your Houndoom. Yeah, Agatha's actually not going to be too big of a deal. And then if you manage all that, you would then get the blue, who, frankly, the Rhydon and depending on which team he has, are going to mess you up because your best chance against one of his teams is going to be against the Venusaur team. Because he will still have Gyarados and Arcanine, which are problematic, but they don't have at least Gyarados doesn't necessarily have the stats to bring everything down. But if it's the Blastoise team or the Charizard team, he's going to have Rhydon, which is a ground rock type. He's going to have Charizard. He's either going to have Arcanine or Gyarados on the team. And then he's going to have either Blastoise or Charizard on the team. Either way, I don't even think you get past Bruno, let alone Lorelei. So you can't be the champion of Kanto with this team. Well, what about Johto? You're going to run into a roadblock with Brittany. Faulkner's no problem. Bugsy's no problem. No, it's Whitney. Miltank knows rollout. That's all she... If anything, this is even worse for... any rock gym is the worst gym you could go against for Darmanitan because if it becomes a fire type, it gets times 4 a week to rock. So if Miltank gets a rolling, you're in trouble. Now that's not to say it's impossible to beat her. Because you beat the Clefairy, you go against the Clefairy first. Then if you can get enough hits in, say with like Icicle Crash, something like that, against Miltank, you might be able to take it down, but the problem is that thing knows Milk Drink too. That Miltank is an unfair beast against small teams like this. So honestly, I'm not going to lie, I think you stop at Whitney. Even if you manage to get past Whitney, you got to deal with Morty. That one's not a problem. But then you got to deal with Chuck. He has a Primeape, a fighting type, which is going to take care of half your team, and a Poliwrath, a water fighting type that will take care of the entire team. Save for Alolan Ninetales. That's the only Mon that is technically safe. And even then, it's still going to take water moves to the face. Like, that's... Chuck, he's only got 2 Mon, but he's kind of got you beat a little bit. Jasmine's actually not that big of a deal. Fire type's going to get through her. Even Price is no big deal. And Claire is not even a big deal. You got enough ice types to deal with her. If you were to manage to get to the Elite Four, you're honestly not going to really deal with any problems from Koga or with Will. No type advantage, really. And Koga's got enough bug types on the team that are weak to fire. Plus, Will's is weak to dark, obviously. Plus 2 Xatu that are weak to ice. He should be fine. It's Bruno that's the problem because his team's now upgraded because he also has a Hitmontop on that team. So, Bruno's another problem once again. Who would have thought Bruno would be the problem child? Karen shouldn't be a problem. Lance might be. Now, the three Dragonite, ironically, are actually probably the least of your worries. You probably can handle the Dragonite too much. In fact, just bring out Ninetales and like things like Outrage and stuff like that. You're just going to completely neg them. It's the other three that's the problem. Because you have the Gyarados, which you actually don't have a strong option for. Water resists ice, which means it's neutral to the ice-type moves you throw at it, despite being flying. So you're going to have to deal with that, and there's a very good chance it's taking out a couple mono along the way. It also has Intimidate, thanks to abilities in Gen 4. Then you got Aerodactyl, which, I mean, let me double check. I don't believe Rock resists ice, if I'm remembering correctly, but I could be very wrong on that. Getting the type chart up right now. I got to remember if it actually resists ice. I know it's strong against ice, but just because you're strong against ice doesn't actually mean you resist it. Now, does it resist ice? No, it's actually neutral to ice. So, yeah, the Aerodactyl might be able to go down, but it's also faster than pretty much everything on this team, so that's a problem. And I believe it knows Rock Slides, which means you've got a problem with that thing. And then, just to cap it off, there's the Charizard. So, yeah, I'm not going to say it's impossible to beat Lance. But the fact of the matter is, you're never getting the Lance on Johto. Whitney alone is just going to stop you right there. In Hoenn, I think you honestly don't ever get to the Elite Four, period. I didn't even bother going all the way into the Elite Four with this one. I think you might be stopped at Roxanne, because she has at minimum 2 Mon, or Geodude, and a Nose Pass, which is already going to be stronger than Galarian Darmanitan. If it's Emeralds, she's got 3 Mon on the team. Then you got to go against Brawly, who's a fighting specialist, and you don't have any good moves against him at that point. Then you got to deal with Watson, and even though you're not weak to Watson in terms of electricity, he's got Magneton and Magnemites on the team. Not to mention, in Emerald, he's also got a main neck trick. So the fact is, you got to try to go ice against steel, and that's no good. And then Flannery is actually going to make mincemeat of the majority of your team after that, because you've got 3 out of your 4 Mon being ice types. Even if Darmanitan Zen Mode does manage to activate, it's going to be too weak to really do much and not have any attacks strong enough to do anything. So, and then, if we were to go even further just for shits and giggles here, Norman, you could probably handle. What was it? Winona, you could handle Winona, no problem. Liza and Tate, rock psychic types, dual, that's good. That's problematic up the ass, man. Admittedly, I don't know if I can't remember if they know rock moves. I think they might know Rock Slide. Then you gotta do with Juan or Watson, water types. And if you managed all that, which you wouldn't, you then gotta go through the Elite Four. Now, Nate, you should probably actually be able to handle Nate. He's got Cacturn and Shiftry, so the fire and ice should be able to handle the majority of that. Same with Phoebe, but Glacia you're kind of neutral against. There's no real ice, but ice and water as well, with the Walrein and the Celio. So, surprisingly, one of the few times Drake shouldn't be that big of a problem. Mind you, his Elements Mega would outspeed anything you have on your team. And he's got more moves than just Dragon moves on that thing. Plus, Kingdra's a water, so it's at least going to be neutral to your ice. But I would say you'd be able to win. You would lose outright to Steven, though. But you might ask, well, you got fire on your team against the Steel types. He's also got a Claydol, which admittedly is weak to the ice. But he's also got an Acheron, which is a Steel rock type, which means it's neutral to fire. He's also got Cradilly and Armaldo, which are both going to basically, not resist ice, but be basically neutral to it. You'll never get to there, though, is the problem. You cannot become the champion Hoenn no matter what. Well, what about Sinnoh? Rorik is going to beat your ass. That's the end of the story. That Craniados has enough attack to just make mincemeat of a Galarian Darmanitan at the same level. And he's got an Onix, so I don't think you make it past Rorik. And even if you did, you wouldn't get past Maxine's fighting types, who would make mincemeat of the majority of your team. At best, you'd have a level 30 Magmar, or Magmortar. So, but you'd still have Glaceon, and you'd still have Darmanitan, who are both straight out weak to fighting. And Magmortar would only be able to do so much. So it's not impossible, but very unlikely. Crasher Wake is also resistant to both of everything on your team, so that's a problem. If you manage to get past all that, Byron shouldn't be a problem. Candace shouldn't be a problem. I'd even go so far as to say Wagner shouldn't be a problem. But then you got Flint. While there's only a couple Firemon in Center to begin with, is a fire specialist with a Steelix, a Lopunny, and a Drifblim, which are very suspicious. Plus the Rapidash and the the Infernape. That Infernape is designed to cleave through the entirety of your team. And then if you could get past, was it Lucian? You gotta get past Cynthia, who will just with Lucario and Milotic alone would be able to make mincemeat of your teams. So, no, long story short, you couldn't become the champion of Sinnoh. Well, what about Unova? Honestly, you could actually have a pretty easy time throughout the majority of the game until you get near the end. Most of the first gyms, because you'd have a fully evolved Mon with Darmanitan and have no type disadvantage, save for Chili, and even then you have the stats to beat that monkey. You should be fine. And then by the time you do get into some gyms that could be problematic for that typing, you'll have enough Mon on the team to handle that. Even Iris and Drayden aren't going to be a big issue. Marlin, though, would be a problem. Again, water is resistant to ice and strong against the fire. So Marlin would be a big hurdle. Then you got to deal with Marshall, who is a fighting type user. So that is a problem as well you'd have to deal with. But it all comes down to the champion, I think. I think you could get to the champions. So can you beat the champions? Iris, surprisingly, yes. I actually think you could beat Iris because half her team is straight out Dragon. The other is, Archeops, which is rock flying, and we know rock is not resistant to ice, so you should be able to handle that. A Lapras, which would probably be the only real big issue on the team that you'd have to deal with, along with the Aggron, which, yeah, the only thing, you really don't have a good answer because the rock is going to make the steel neutral to fire, so Aggron would be a little tough. But I think overall you actually could beat Iris. Alder is a bit more of a maybe scenario. While you certainly have type advantages against the bug types, Excelgor, Excavalier, Buffalot, got nothing strong against it. Then Druddigon, you should be fine because of the ice. Vanellish, fire. But then Volcarona is perfectly designed to be immune or resistant to everything on this team. Like, it's fire, so it's not going to be hurt by the fire. It's not going to be hurt by ice. And Bug is resistant to ice. It doesn't resist ice, but it's not hurt by ice. If that thing sets up a Quiver Dance, you're in trouble because there's nothing you really have on the team that can manage. Not to mention, though, that even though you have the type advantage against Excelgor when it comes to your fire types, it outspeeds everything on your team. So at least one of your Mon is getting hit and hit hard. And if it's Houndoom, it could go down hard and fast. And then Buffalot is also a heavy hitter, which means several of your Mon are going down before the Volcarona ever even comes out. And then Excavalier, if you're lucky enough to not have any real fire, if they're lucky enough to have no fire on your side left, you might actually have a problem there. So I would say it's maybe you could be Alder, but I definitely think you could be Iris. The problem is, though, I'm not sure if you get past them. Marlin's going to be a problem, and Marshall will be a problem. The other one's not so much. But I think you could get through the majority of the game. So I think, yeah, I don't think they're like true. You stop the game's over moments there. In Kalos, honestly, you're already going to run into a problem with Grant. Yes, Tyrant is a dragon type, but the fact is Aurorus is also a rock type as well. Aurorus is actually going to be your bigger problem because I believe both these Mon know Ancient Power or they know a rock move. So actually, I've got the site up right here. Why don't I just look? Let's see here now. X and Y. Oh, X and Y. Boo doo doo doo. X and Y. Oh, domino, baby. Whoa, the gym leaders. Okay, Rock Tomb. Oh, yeah. And Aurora has Thunder Wave, too. Ooh, that Aurorus is a bit of a problem. Now, Aurorus does have a little problem of being an ice type with Refrigerate, which means its normal takedown move will turn into ice. And Aurora Beam. So the only move it really has going for it is Rock Tomb. Whereas Tyrant has Strong Jaw for Bite, which means those moves are going to hurt as well. But it wouldn't be easy, but it's possible. Then you got to deal with Karina, and going to be if Ninetales was in fact your third mon, I'd say you could win because the fairy type resists fighting, but it's not. And at best you'll have a level 30 mag mortar. Hawlucha outspeeds everything. The flying press is going to cleave through Glaceon and probably Darmanitan. That's not even talking about the Mod Choke and the you can definitely have a Mag Mortar at this point. But that's even counting the Menfu and the Mod Choke. That guy has Rock Tomb and Power Up Punch. And the other one has Fake Out, Double Slap, and Power Up Punch. So, yeah, level 32 Hawlucha is going to kind of cleave through the majority of your team here. You can get through Ramos, no problem, though. You'll get through Clement, no problem. Valerie, no problem, quite frankly. Alistair, and Snowbell at that point, you should be fine. But then you get to the Elite Four, and that's going to be tricky. Flava's the only one you'll have a real issue with. Just because she's a fire type and you have half your team weak to fire. And the team's got a pretty good move set too. I mean, you got the Prior with Flamethrower, Wild Charge, Normal Roar, Hyper Voice, Flame Wheel, Stone Edge, Earthquake on Torkoal, which means it has answers for your fire types as well. Flamethrower, Confuse Ray, Confide, Shadow Ball with Chandelure, and Talonfang with Quick Attack, Brave Bird, Flare Blitz, and Flail. And half of the team has Flame Body as well, so you definitely have to be careful. Otherwise, I mean, you should handle Winkstrom, no problem. Drasna, you should actually be able to handle it without too much difficulty. Sibold, that's the one I always forget the name of. That one you might have some problem with because it's water, which means it's resistant and strong against the majority of your team, if not all of it. And Barbonicle's a water rock type that happens to have Stone Edge on it and Cross Chop. So it's got rock and fire and rock and fighting and water moves with Razor Shell. That Barbonicle could wipe out the whole team if you're not careful. Not to mention Clawitzer, which is a cannon, a straight cannon, and a Gyarados with Ice Fang, Dragon Dance, Earthquake, and Waterfall. Dear God, I know it. Say what you will. I mean, because of the experience share being always on and everything gets it, and just how overleveled you end up being, I kind of think we sometimes sleep on this Elite Four a little bit. This is a good moveset in these Elite Fours. And then you get Diantha, who would come out with Hawlucha first, that has Poison Jab, so not even your Ninetales is safe. Flying Press, Swords Dance, and X-Scissor? Oh, and because it's fighting, it's going to be resistant to the ice? Oh, you're in trouble, just with that Hawlucha alone. If you manage to take it down, you know a couple mon are going with it, so then the Tyrantrum comes out. It has Head Smash, Dragon Claw, Earthquake, and Crunch, which it can just Head Smash through a giant portion of your guys. Auroras, which is going to be neutral to your ice and whatever fire you have left. Gourgeist, which that one will go down pretty quick. Goodra, which if you have any ice should go down quick. And then you have Mega Gardevoir, which has Thunderbolt, Moonblast, Psychic, and Shadow Ball. Needless to say, not a good matchup for you. I'd be inclined to say no, you could not beat her, frankly. I think Diantha gets slept on because she was just there. She didn't have a good story in this. She wasn't part of the story at all. But her team is actually pretty solid. Now, that being said, in Galar, real quick, Nessa would be your first big problem, just because she has, Dreadnought, Airascuda, and, oh god, what was her third mod? I'm blanking on the third. Goldeen, was it? I think it's Goldeen is her, is her third mod. Goldeen. Yes, Goldeen, Airascuda, and Dreadnought. The Dreadnought is really going to be the thing that you're going to struggle against more than anything else, because Darmanitan, even though water's not strong against ice, it's just resistant. At least I'm pretty sure that's the case. One second. Oh well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not actually strong against ice, it's just resistant to ice. Yeah, it's the Dreadnought, and that's going to be the big problem. You only have 2 mon, one is straight out weak to water, it's a Magby, so it won't even be fully evolved at that point. Even if I give you the 2 levels over, it's only 26, and Magmar evolves at level 30. And then you go to Motostoke, and look, you got freaking Ninetales, Arcanine, and Centiskorch. Even if I were nice, you aren't getting past that team with the team you have. It's just not happening. Then if you're going, and even if you did manage, which I don't think you would, you then have to deal with Bee and Sword. and Alistair in Shield. And not really good against either, quite frankly. It's just, you're not really well set up at all. And then there's also Gordy from the Rock Gym Leader later on, and then Raihan, which is just, you're not set up to take on the Galar Gym Leaders at all. And then even if you manage to get through all of it, which I don't think you would, you then got to deal with Leon. Starts off with Aegislash, which you then have to go into a fire type move for to just take it down, which means it's already going to get a hit off on you. And then it goes into the freaking Dragapult, which is a team sweeper, because the fire type mon is probably going down first. No matter what ice mon you throw out for that Dragapult, it has flamethrower. And it's a pseudo. So it's taking down pretty much everything that goes up against it. And then Paldea. Honestly, Kobu's the one individual you might have a problem with. Kofu. Kofu is the one you might have a problem with because he's a water type specialist, and at that point you'll only have 4 mon on the team. But I think you should be able to manage. And then if you get to the Elite Four, quite frankly, you actually shouldn't struggle that hard with the Elite Four. Rika, who normally I'd say is a problem, and her entire team is weak to ice. So right out that gate, you're fine. And most of her mon are extremely slow as well. So, because she has a Clodsire. Oh, not that button. God. Okay. Where's Victory Road again? Where's Victory Road? There we go. Okay, Victory Road. Here we go. No, is that this? Are you just giving me the gym leaders here, or am I getting the Elite Four too? Oh no, here we go. Yeah, this because of the story. Yeah, Rika, she's got all of her mon except for the Doug Trio are slow as hell. Donphan's okay, it isn't like the slowest, but Clodsire, Camera Up, Whiscash, not very fast. The Whiscash would be able to resist some of the ice along with Camera Up, so those two would be somewhat problematic. Doug Trio is also fast, so if it gets off it can get off a rock slide. So, okay, you might actually struggle with Rika a little bit. You might. I think you can get past her, no problem. Poppy, the fastest thing she's got in there is a goddamn Corviknight, so the fire-type moves should be enough. Then you got Larry, who's all flying. The only mon on the team who would even be able to resist flying would be the Flamingo, or Flamigo. So that's no problem. Hassel is the Dragon-type specialist. The only mon on that team that's probably going to be a bit of an issue is the Baxcalibur, because it's an Ice Dragon type, so you don't actually have any advantages over it. The Dragon resists the fire, and the Ice resists the ice. I believe Ice resists ice. I think, anyway. Does Ice resist ice? Let's find out, shall we? I've never actually asked that question. I think ice does resist ice. Yes, ice resists ice. So that means, yeah. So that one you might struggle with because it's also got the thermal exchange ability, which, if I remember correctly here, what does that move do? Or what does that ability do? I believe it means if you get hit by a fire type move, you increase your powers. It's kind of like flash fire thing. Boost the attack side of the Pokemon hit by a fire move, but the Pokemon also cannot be burned. So basically it's a flash fire just in a different form. And on a pseudo, that is problematic. I like Excalibur, side note, but I do think that it needed to, they needed to make it less round looking. It needs to be a bit more angular, I think. Anyway, and then you get to Gita. So you'd struggle through the Elite Four, but I don't think it's impossible to beat the Elite Four. Then you get to Gita. Now, Gita is weird because half her team is weak to fire, and another half of and she has a couple mon that are weak to, the Go-Go's weak to ice. And so half the team that's weak to ice and fire, or fire anyways, King Gambit, Avalog, and Go-Go. Now she's probably going to start with a Pathra, which, okay, fine. Throughout Houndoom, you should be good, but it does no Dazzling Gleam, which is a problem. And I think Espathra is faster than Houndoom, if I'm not mistaken. What is the stats on that? Oh, 105, yeah, 105 speed on Espathra. Holy crap, that thing's fast. And yeah, Houndoom is not that fast, which means Houndoom might take it down, but I think Espathra might actually take it down first. Plus, it's got Reflect, which means it can set that up. Which means then you're probably going to have to go into another mon, maybe, I don't know, Let's say Armor Rouge, just take it down. And this is where, and now, fortunately, her AI is not good when you first fight her. This is just because if you were smart, she'd send out Glamora last instead of keep sending out the Mon Weetor. But Go-Go would probably come out, and then Veluza. Veluza is a problem because it has Aqua Jet, Psycho Cut, Ice Fang, and Liquidation. And Veluza is another Mon that is so deceptively powerful. It's got 102 attack. It's only got 70 speed though, but it's got its defenses are in the 70s, 65. It's got a solid attack though. So, and then Abalug. The problem just for me is the Veluza runs the risk of taking out most, if not all, of your fire types. Because Houndoom probably is going down first, which only actually leaves you Magmortar and Armor Rouge. If Veluza manages to take down one more of those, you're running into a problem. Because Abalug should not be that big of an issue. The fire moves should be able to take it down. It's also extremely slow. King Gambit, in theory, would be a problem, but as long as there's fire moves available for you to use, you should be fine. And Glamora is the weird one. Rock poison type. It, in theory, is capable of taking down any one of you or your team members, and it can just turn into a solid rock type thanks to terrestrialization. It knows Sludge Wave, Earth Power, Dazzling Gleam, and Terra Blast. And Terra Blast rock means it can cleave through a giant chunk of your team. But Glamora is a really weird Pokemon because it doesn't really have super high stats on anything except special attack, which admittedly is 130. Otherwise, it's got very weak physical attack and HP. Its HP is 80, but 83 to be precise, and it's 86 speed. Not slow, but I will say that as long as the AI is working in your favor, you could beat her. Sure, you could. But that being said, I'm going to put it as a maybe. I'm going to round it out as a maybe. That's what I'm going to do. So we went along with this, but that's just because how unique. It's a 50-50 split for the typing on this team. Either way, though, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.